What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto got a wand instead of Kurama? And used magic like a god? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. It was a cool August afternoon in the hidden village of Konoha. It is the time of day when the breeze is nice and cool and the sun doesn't shine too brightly. The timing is perfect for little children to come out and play, or in the case of this town, it was a perfect time for ninja training. Outside the 5th Hokage's office, people were going about their business and a cat was meowing loudly owing to the fact that it was being chased around town by 3 young children. Though, if there were several more cats meowing even louder, Tsunade Hime would not have noticed it, for she was sleeping soundly in her nice comfy chair with her head resting on her arms on top of her desk, which was littered with towering amounts of paperwork. As her drool was ominously inching its way to the nearest stack of papers and her dream was filled with scenes of her winning massive amounts of money from a slot machine, she was speaking softly to no one in particular. More money? She mumbled in her sleep. In the dream, she had just put another bill in the slot machine, but if she won more money or not, she'll never be able to find out, because she was woken up by a very loud bang against her office wall as she was about to pull down the stick that would activate the machine. "Tsunade-sama!" exclaimed a girl's voice, further awakening her from her wonderful dream. She slurred groggily, still keeping her eyes closed and her head relaxed. What is it, Sakura-chan? This better be important, I'm very busy right now. "Tsunade-sama," she repeated. "You have to come right now. It's Naruto, Tsunade snapped to attention and cut her off. Again? Where is he? At the training grounds. Sasuke-kun and Kakashi-sensei are already trying to restrain him." "Let's go then," Tsunade said hastily, taking the lead and beckoning for Sakura to follow her. "Where's Shizune? I asked her to go get Jiraiya-sama," said Sakura quickly. "We'll need all the help we can get." As they ran out of the building and made their way to the training grounds, Tsunade spoke again. "This is the 3rd time in a month. It's getting quite bad." "I know," said Sakura quietly. "What exactly happened?" asked Tsunade, frowning slightly. "We were having our ninjutsu training," said Sakura while trying to keep up with her master's fast pace. Then all of Naruto-kun's shadow replications went up in smoke and he fell face first on the ground. "Go on," said Tsunade, worried about what she would hear would happen next. When he stood up, he was covered in the red chakra again and his eyes were red, his fangs were bigger, and his nails were much sharper, just like the last time, Sakura said. Only this time, it seemed like he was less human and more of a monster, she added in quiet tones. "What?" Tsunade turned sharply to Sakura. "What do you mean, less human?" "Well," Sakura started hesitatingly. This time, there was something else in his eyes, a hunger that wasn't there before. It was like he wanted to kill. Then he started to savagely attack Sasuke-kun. "That was when Kakashi-sensei told me to go to you at once." "I see," said Tsunade, facing front again. "We aren't that far. We should get there soon." The implied, "or else," hung briefly in the air when Sakura spoke again. "When is his advanced bloodline going to stabilize anyway?" she asked curiously. "It's really going to get more dangerous if this happens more often." Tsunade-sama winced as her well-crafted white lie reared its head again. 3 years ago, when Naruto brought Sasuke home after the incident with Orochimaru, a few awkward questions were asked by Sasuke about how Naruto got the extraordinary power that he displayed during their battle. Rather than tell them the truth, Tsunade told them instead that Naruto came from a family with an advanced bloodline that took a while to stabilize after being initially activated. Kakashi and the rest of the older shinobi followed suit and now used the same story. "I'm not sure," she lied again. "I think it differs with the individual. I guess," Sakura said sadly. "I just hope it happens soon. It's going to get really ugly if this happens when there are innocent people around." "Really ugly indeed," thought Tsunade. "And it's just going to get worse." It really was hard to know the truth, to know that it wasn't really an advanced bloodline that caused the problem but a demon that was sealed in the poor boy's body. To know that it would not really stabilize on its own, and to know that the methods they were applying were failing miserably each time. Yes, it was very hard indeed, thought Tsunade Hime as she and Sakura continued to make their way to the scene of the incident. The scene that greeted Tsunade and Sakura when they arrived at the training grounds was not a beautiful sight. Several trees were uprooted and a number of them were on fire while the ground was cracked in several places as though a gigantic creature had fallen from the sky and created a huge crater. As the dust cloud in the crater started to settle, they saw the one who was responsible for most of the damage that was wrought in the area. In the middle of the crater stood the blonde-haired boy known as Naruto, with threatening amounts of red chakras surrounding him and looking exactly as Sakura described him earlier. He was crouched on all fours and several wisps of the red chakra were swirling behind him as though they were extensions of his own body, as if they were tails looking for something to grasp. Naruto was staring directly in front of him, and as the dust settled, Sakura could make out just exactly what he was staring at. Their other teammate, the dark-haired ninja known as Sasuke, was standing a few meters away from Naruto. His skin had a grayish tinge, his hair was white. Two bat-like wings that were oddly shaped like hands protruded from his back and were beating ever so slowly, as if waiting for other shinobi to make another move. Their teacher, however, Hitaki Kakashi, was nowhere to be seen. "Oh no," Sakura said, breaking the silence that permeated the air. "Sasuke-kun used the cursed seal again. He doesn't have much time. He can only keep himself in that form for a short time." "Right, then," said Tsunade. "Let's go help him." They had learned that the best thing to do whenever something like this happened was to distract Naruto from everything else, since he was acting more on his animal instincts rather than his human intellect. The best way to do this, of course, is to fight with him. This is exactly what Sasuke is doing right now. Distracting Naruto when he was in this state was not an easy task, as they had learned the hard way. Running away from him and trying to get him to chase you seemed like a good idea at first until Naruto got bored and started to veer off at a different direction where there were lots of people. Several people, including 2 young genin, were slightly injured that day. They had learned that in order to keep him distracted, you had to keep him interested in the fight. The problem was, Naruto always went all out when fighting, with the intention to kill, whereas his opponent was only trying to distract him and not try to hurt him at all. Of course, it's a different case with Sasuke. Ever since Naruto brought him back from the incident with Orochimaru, he has always been trying to defeat Naruto in a battle every time something like this happened. His and Naruto's friendship had never been fully restored as to what it was before the incident. Sure, they still got along and continued with their customary insults, but there was still a certain amount of awkwardness when more delicate matters were brought up. Sakura was sure Sasuke faced a couple of issues with what happened every time Naruto lost control of his chakra, hence the reason for his current appearance. Sasuke only ever uses his cursed seal when this happens to Naruto. Sakura and Tsunade made their way towards the battle area to help Sasuke restrain Naruto, and it was at this point that Kakashi appeared in front of them and stopped them in their tracks. "Wait," said Kakashi, holding his hand up in front of Tsunade. "Let's give them a little more time. I don't think Naruto will be able to keep up much longer." "Neither will Sasuke-kun," Sakura interjected loudly. "She's right," Tsunade added. "If we don't do something right now, Sasuke-kun might run out of chakra and then he's in trouble." "No, the situation's under control. We've been preparing for a situation just like this one," said Kakashi. "Just watch." Inside the arena-like crater, things were getting quite heated. Naruto was staring at Sasuke intensely, not seeing his friend and comrade but instead a fierce enemy. Sasuke stared back just as vehemently, but his eyes held something else. He saw not an enemy but a friend and a rival at the same time. This was the person who was responsible for bringing him back from the brink of making a huge mistake, and Sasuke owed him big. Although he would never admit it straight to the loudmouth ninja's face. He would eventually repay that debt to Naruto even if he doesn't know about it. As it was, Sakura was right about Sasuke. His chakra reserves were dwindling and his acquired strength was slowly fading. "Damn," Sasuke thought to himself. "I have to finish this soon. I won't last much longer." Although he wasn't putting much effort into attacking Naruto, dodging him and parrying his moves weren't exactly a walk in the park. It took a lot of effort just to stay alive. "I just hope that pervert's plan works, and he'd better hurry up." Sasuke crouched and flexed his wings threateningly to show Naruto that he was still interested in the fight. Apparently, Naruto read the signals correctly and started to growl in response and run towards Sasuke when a booming voice cried out, "Petrificus totalis." Suddenly, as if unable to move, Naruto's 4 limbs gave out under his weight and fell to the floor. It seems as though he's struggling to move, but he can't because it's as if invisible ropes are restraining him. The voice rang out again, stupefy, and again, incarcerus. A jet of red light hit Naruto squarely in the chest after the first incantation, and a whole bunch of snake-like cords wrapped around him after the second. Just to be sure, the man who spoke the incantation said. "It's about time you got here," said Sasuke as he whipped his head to the side and faced the man. Jiraiya-sama. The man Sasuke was talking to was standing on the edge of the crater, had long, spiky white hair that was held back in a ponytail. In his right hand, held threateningly as if it were a weapon, was a wooden stick that looked like a baton. "It worked," the man called Jiraiya said as he jumped from the ledge and crouched beside Naruto's seemingly unconscious form. "His features are back to normal," he said matter-of-factly. "Good," said Sasuke non-committally. "Jiraiya," Tsunade's voice shouted threateningly from somewhere above them. A second later, she was beside them along with Sakura, Kakashi, and Shizune. "What do you think you're doing? You know better than to mix Western magic with ours. Naruto could have been hurt really bad. He could have died," Tsunade said, her voice dripping with rage. "No, please listen first," Kakashi said pleadingly, waving his hands in front of his body. "And you," screamed Tsunade, whipping her head sideways to face Kakashi. "You should have told me. Is this what you call having things in control? You've been planning this all along and you know that I wouldn't have approved of it. Didn't you even think about what would happen to Naruto if things went terribly wrong?" The fifth Hokage's anger at the two men stemmed from the fact that she deeply cared about Naruto. Having lost her own little brother, she had come to think of Naruto as such. Underneath all of his repeated insults of old hag, she knew that Naruto also felt the same way about her. If she won't be able to stand it if she lost another brother. "Don't worry," Jiraiya said soothingly. "He's fine. That's not it." Tsunade turned to him again. "The point is that you recklessly endangered his life by using disapproved methods." "It wasn't reckless," Kakashi said hesitatingly. "We researched it fully and we know that the spells couldn't have affected Naruto other than the way they were supposed to work." "How could you be sure?" Tsunade asked doubtfully. "We'll explain later," Jiraiya promised. "We have a lot of things to talk about, but we have to get Naruto to the hospital first." "Very well," Tsunade agreed. "Enervate," muttered Jiraiya while pointing his wand at Naruto. A jet of sky blue light hit Naruto in the chest where a previous spell had hit him, and very slowly, the blonde-haired boy opened his eyes and they were once again a vibrant shade of azure blue. He started to sit up slowly but found out that he couldn't because there were ropes wrapped tightly around him, preventing his movement. What happened?" Naruto asked slowly. When no one seemed to want to answer his question, he spoke again. "It happened again, didn't it? It wasn't your fault, Naruto-kun," Tsunade said assuringly. "It couldn't be helped, Naruto-kun," Sakura said agreeingly. "So don't feel bad about it. I'm sorry, everyone," Naruto said, hanging his head down. However, he found out that this was an uncomfortable position as he was already lying down on the ground and was restrained by ropes. "Huh? What the?" he started out confusedly. "What is this? Get these damn ropes off of me." Naruto started wriggling violently as everyone around him started to chuckle. "Yes, Naruto," Jiraiya said in between chuckles. "I see that you really are back to normal." He pointed his wand at Naruto once again and uttered, "Finite incantatum." After they had deposited Naruto at the hospital for treatment, even though Naruto insisted that he was perfectly fine, a certain Junin and Sanin found themselves in the 5th Hokage's office and were currently withering under the dark glares that were being directed at them by one very angry Hokage. "I suppose," Tsunade said with all seriousness, "that the two of you are going to tell me just exactly what happened back there." "Yes," said Jiraiya, all traces of joking gone from his voice. "But you have to listen first." "Yes," Tsunade said coldly. "I will." "Very well," Jiraiya said. "Kakashi, would you please make sure that no one would be able to listen to our conversation? You already know about what I have to say." "Of course, Jiraiya-sama," Kakashi said obediently. Kakashi then summoned 4 of his nin dogs and sent them to patrol the area. After giving a nod of his head to Jiraiya and Tsunade, he stepped out of the room and shut the door behind him. "I'll start now then," Jiraiya said. He then started speaking in low, urgent tones. "The Kyuubi, which is sealed inside Naruto's body, is trying its very best to take over Naruto's body, and it's succeeding. At this point, Tsunade gave out a long, tired sigh. I know that, she said. That's why we've been doing everything we can to control it. And are failing miserably. Jiraiya finished the sentence for her. The Kyuubi is slowly taking away a little part of Naruto every time something like this happens. Every time Naruto loses control, the Kyuubi becomes a part of him. Don't you notice that every time the Kyuubi comes out, it's as if he's stronger, more in control than the last time he came out? Naruto is slowly caving in. A couple more incidents like this and the Kyuubi will have full control over Naruto. Jiraiya paused for a few moments to let the reality of the situation sink in. This is why we needed to try new methods to try and control the Kyuubi. This was when we thought to use Western magic. Tsunade stood up angrily. You know very well about the things that could have gone wrong in the worst way possible and still you considered using magic? Have you stopped thinking altogether? Those simple spells could have killed Naruto. You didn't even consider the fact that he has a demon sealed inside of him. For all you know, you could have released the Kyuubi. Tsunade was now really very angry as she stared down Jiraiya. Unfazed, Jiraiya continued explaining. That is where you're wrong, he stated confidently. The tailed demons are creatures that were created by using the two different types of magic. Theirs and ours. This is why they are so powerful, when they are free. However, if they are trapped inside a host's body, their power decreases greatly. The Kyuubi is powerless against Western magic because he is trapped inside Naruto's body. This is why the Kyuubi was suppressed when I used the stunning spell on Naruto. Tsunade was pacing the room as she listened to Jiraiya. She faced him to ask a question. That still doesn't explain why Naruto himself wasn't affected by those spells. The effects of Western magic on a ninja are always disastrous if the ninja hasn't been trained in Western magic itself. And I'm pretty sure that Naruto has received no such training. How did he survive those spells when the two different clashing energies, magic and chakra, should have killed him instead? The Kyuubi, Jiraiya answered, protected him. This is the advantage that Naruto has. Since he has a creature with the two sides of magic in him, the two types of energies don't battle for dominance, as they should have. Where other ninjas would have died because of those clashing energies, Naruto is spared from that by the protection that the Kyuubi unknowingly gives him. I see, Tsunade said, although not convinced altogether. Where did you find out about all of this anyway? A few months ago, Jiraiya said. I found a very old book that details the creation of Leviathan, the two-tailed demon of the Mist Country. Tsunade gave an involuntary gasp. Really? She said, sounding extremely worried. Where did you find it? Where is it now? That thing would be very dangerous in the wrong hands. And by that, I mean Akatsuki. We don't them making more tailed demons. Don't worry, Jiraiya said assuringly. I found it in an old ruin in the Wind Country and it's safe where it is right now. How can you be sure of that? Tsunade said, balling her hands into fists. If such a book exists, then how can we be sure that others just like it don't? Don't worry, Jiraiya said again. I'm not sure if any more books were made, but I don't think that a lot of them could have survived for about 8 centuries. The one I have is in really bad condition already and it's written in the old language. Plus, I don't think Akatsuki is concerned about making more demons right now. Their primary objective is to capture those that already exist, like Naruto's Kyuubi. We'll see about that, Tsunade said threateningly. Have you translated all of it yet? What have you found out? Not much, Jiraiya said with a sigh. I haven't translated all of it yet. The old language is a dead one and I only one book as a reference. I see, Tsunade said. Then, as if realizing something, Tsunade looked up to Jiraiya with a semi-hopeful expression on her face. Does it say anything about our current problem with Naruto? She asked. For a while, it seemed like Jiraiya won't answer her question until he nodded his head in confirmation. Well? Tsunade asked. What did it say? Jiraiya hesitated again, but he started to talk after a few moments. You won't like this part, he started slowly. But we will have to do it because we don't have any other choices. I can only use the Western magic on Naruto for about 2 more times and then the Kyuubi would be able to absorb the magic and use it to break free. If we allow this to continue, Naruto will eventually give in and the Kyuubi will take control. However, I found a way in the book to restrain the Kyuubi, but it involves casting of Western magic. As it is, I haven't finished the translation yet, so I'm not yet sure about how to go about the entire ritual. But one fact remains. We will have to use Western magic, and in order to do so, Naruto must also be trained in Western magic. He can use the time while I'm translating the rest of the book to learn Western magic." "What?" Tsunade exclaimed angrily. "That won't be happening. The breach between our world and the wizarding world would not allow it. And yet that doesn't stop us from owning wands," Jiraiya said knowingly. "What?" Tsunade said, sounding confused. "What do you mean by that?" "Don't deny it," Jiraiya said with a smirk. "I already saw it. Twice, in fact." "What?" Tsunade said again. "When? That doesn't matter. The fact is I know you have one and I know that you can use it." "Very well," Tsunade said regrettably. "What do we have to do?" "Naruto needs to learn Western magic," Jiraiya stated matter-of-factly. "And to do so, he must be enrolled in a school of wizardry." "Do you know a place?" "As a matter of fact," Tsunade said with a smile, "I do. And the headmaster is an old connection of mine. I could ask him for a favor. He does owe me quite a few. And the place is perfect. It's unplottable, so Akatsuki won't be able to find him." "That sounds great," Jiraiya said approvingly. "Make sure to tell him and his teammates about it. They might not take it well, but I'm sure Naruto will. He always likes learning something new. But he might not like going there alone." It was Tsunade's turn to say it. "Don't worry, whoever said he was going alone? If Sasuke-kun and Sakura-chan are willing to accompany him, then I guess there won't be any problems." Good," said Jiraiya, making his way to the door. "Well, make sure to tell me when they're leaving." "Wait," Tsunade called out to Jiraiya. "When exactly did you find out that I had a wand?" "A few minutes ago," Jiraiya said with a big smile. "You just admitted it to me, remember?" "But," Tsunade said, confused, "you tricked me. You just violated one of the basic rules of being a ninja." Jiraiya chuckled. "Always look underneath the underneath, remember?" And with that, Jiraiya left the room with a very pissed-off Tsunade glaring at his back. Tsunade stood glaring at Jiraiya's back for a while until she was sure that he wasn't going to look back. Then she went back to her desk and took out a sheet of paper and a pen from a drawer. After sitting back down on her comfy executive chair, she began to write. "Albus, I need your help. Would you please consent to have a meeting with me? This is a very urgent matter. Please reply with the date and time if ever you are willing. I'm sorry if I am imposing on you, but as I said, this is a very urgent matter. Tsunade. Godem Hokage." There, Tsunade thought to herself. It looks official enough. Now I just have to send it. "Shizune," she shouted, calling for her assistant. A sound of running footsteps and the opening of a door were heard until Shizune spoke. "Yes, Hokage-sama? Get me our fastest eagle," Tsunade said. "Eagle?" Shizune asked. "What for?" "I need to send a letter," Tsunade said evasively. "Don't ask." "Okay, I'll see what I can do," Shizune said obediently. "Thank you," said Tsunade gratefully. Shizune left the room and Tsunade was left to ponder some thoughts that were beginning to run in circles in her mind. "I wonder if he will consent to have a meeting. Knowing Albus, he probably will. That man is just too noble to refuse help to a friend in great need of it. Yes," she thought to herself, feeling a lot better. "He will, without a doubt, agree to talk to me." A few moments later, Shizune returned with Ichigo, the fastest delivery eagle in the village. The eagle was smaller than the average eagle, but it more than made up for that because of its speed. It was a beautiful brown color speckled with a few dashes of black and white. It was aptly named after the strawberry-like red marking on its chest. "Thank you, Shizune," Tsunade said, taking the bird in her hands. "You're welcome, Hokage-sama," Shizune said. "If you need anything, please call me again." Shizune then left the room and closed the door behind her. Tsunade rolled the sheet of paper, tied it with a red ribbon, sealed it with the official seal of the Hokage and wrote outside. Albus Dumbledore, Headmaster, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Scotland. She then attached the letter to Ichigo's leg and gave him some instructions. "Deliver this to Albus Dumbledore in Hogwarts," she curtly said to the eagle. "Don't lose it. Wait for his reply and fly back here immediately. Do you understand?" The eagle gave a loud squawk as if in confirmation to Tsunade's question and then took flight, exiting through the open window that Tsunade just opened. "Now, all we have to do is wait," she said, sighing to herself. Naruto was walking aimlessly along the streets of Konoha, ignoring the hateful glares that the older people gave him. After 2 days at the hospital, He couldn't stand the looks of fear and disgust that the doctors and nurses gave him, so he ran away from there. They obviously didn't want him there, and he sure as hell didn't need them. His wounds were healing faster than ever since the incidents with the Kyuubi started. A few minutes after he was restrained, all of the wounds that he received from his and Sasuke's earlier battle had disappeared, and within an hour, he was back to his full strength. Why Jiraiya had wanted him to stay at the hospital even if he was healed was beyond him. Being the host of a demon sure had its advantages. Although it doesn't make up for the way people treated him, the Kyuubi was a very useful tool when Naruto is in control. But still, it was very hard to keep a secret from your friends. Would they look at him the same way that everyone looks at him when they find out? Sakura would probably try to be supportive, but he knew that inside, she would probably be just as scared as everyone else. And Sasuke? Things were never the same between them again, and they both knew it. How would he react if he found out that Naruto had an entity of such immense power hidden inside of him? He'd probably want it for himself. Naruto thought to himself. The reason that Sasuke left the village was for power, and Naruto knew that Sasuke had still not abandoned his plans for revenge on Itachi, the brother who took everyone Sasuke loved away from him. Friendship was what made Sasuke come back with him to Konoha. Would their friendship survive if he finds out that Naruto had been keeping such a big secret and lying all along? Maybe or maybe not, it's best not to try and find out. A million more questions popped into his head, but having no sure answers for any of them, he was starting to get a real migraine. Scratching his head in irritation, he decided to go to the place that cheered him up no matter what the problem was, Ichiraku Ramen. Yes, ramen always makes him feel better. When he arrived at the ramen place, he took his usual seat at the counter and rang the bell that told the old man running the place that there was a customer waiting to be served. Oji-san, Naruto yelled at the top of his voice. One miso pork and beef ramen please. Extra large, I'm super hungry. Oh, it's you, Naruto, came a voice from behind the curtains where the kitchen was. Please wait for a while, I prepare it for you. Okay, said Naruto happily. He was starting to feel much better already. Oi, Naruto, exclaimed a voice from behind him. Startled, Naruto turned around to face none other than Jiraiya-sama. Oi, yelled Naruto at the top of his lungs. Ero Sennin, why are you here? So loud and energetic already so early in the morning? The older ninja said with a smile. What are you doing here? You should still be at the hospital until this afternoon. Ah, no way am I staying at that hospital a second longer. Naruto said indignantly. I'm perfectly fine now. I see, Jiraiya said. Are you sure? Of course I am, huffed Naruto. You know that I heal very fast. Why'd you let me stay there for 2 damn days anyway? Oh, Jiraiya said thoughtfully. Well, let's just say that we had to test you to see if the new method we used in restraining you had any side effects. Oh, yeah, I've been meaning to ask you about that. The blonde-haired shinobi directed to Jiraiya. What did you do to me back there anyway? I wasn't severely wounded like the last time, and from what I heard, I was down pretty quick. Let's talk about that later. Jiraiya said evasively. For now, come with me. Tsunade wants to talk to you. Right now? Naruto exclaimed irately, forgetting about his earlier question. But I still have to eat my ramen. That can wait, Jiraiya said coolly. Tsunade needs to see you now. But, Naruto argued. My ramen. Let's go, Naruto. Jiraiya said insistently. Before I tie you up and drag your sorry ass up to Tsunade. But, no more buts. Jiraiya said to Naruto before turning to face the counter where the old man was standing with Naruto's bowl of ramen in his hands. Oji-sama, he said respectfully. Please keep Naruto's ramen hot for him. He'll just have to go back to eat it later. This is urgent business from the Hokage. Ah, the old man said. I see. Well, come back later then, Naruto. I'll make sure to keep it hot for when you return later. Ah, Naruto screamed while scratching his head in irritation. Fine, let's go so we can get this over with and I can eat my ramen. This is so unfair, he added silently. Okay, Naruto, Jiraiya said cheerfully. Let's go. Yes, Naruto said tiredly. You don't have to sound so happy about it. Sheesh, stupid old pervert, he added under his breath. Jiraiya wheeled around suddenly. What was that? He asked threateningly. Nothing, Naruto insisted. Let's just go. And they set off towards the Hokage's main office, Naruto gloomily following Jiraiya's trail. Inside Tsunade's office, Sasuke and Sakura were sitting silently in comfy chairs at the corner of the room. They had been here for almost a quarter of an hour and the Tsunade had not said a single word to them other than to sit and wait for Naruto to arrive. Being his first time in the Hokage's office, Sasuke looked at his surroundings with interest until he discovered that there was nothing interesting to be seen in particular. A few medical scrolls strewn about haphazardly across the room and several sheets of paper that fell from the overcrowded desk. Being Hokage seemed like a very boring job to Sasuke. All paperwork and no action at all. No, that was definitely not the life for him. He sat, pondering the reasons why he had been called into the office of the Hokage herself a while ago. For a while, he thought that there was a problem that concerned him, his brother or Orochimaru. Relief instantly flooded him when he saw that Sakura was also in the room. Her presence meant that there was probably a mission that was to be assigned to them. When Tsunade told him to sit down and until Naruto arrives, his nerves felt instantly calmer. It was most definitely a mission. Now, a quarter of an hour later, Naruto had still not arrived and the questions were once again swimming around in his head. With a sudden realization, he remembered that missions were usually given in the conference room of this building. Never had they ever been given a mission inside the Hokage's office. He turned to Sakura to voice his thoughts. "Hey, Sakura," he said quietly, so as not to disturb Tsunade who was currently reading a report on her desk. "What do you think we're doing here? Aren't missions usually given in the conference hall?" Sakura was startled because Sasuke rarely spoke to her in such a casual tone. She stammered. "I'm not really sure. I think." What Sakura thought, Sasuke didn't find out because the door suddenly swung open and in came the loud and boisterous ninja that they had all been waiting for. "Oi!" Naruto yelled playfully at Tsunade. "Tsunade Baba, what do you need me for? I have a bowl of ramen just sitting at my table at Ichiraku's." Tsunade looked up from her readings and gave the blonde shinobi a smile. "I see that you're back to normal again," she said. Yes, Naruto said. "Now, why am I here? I'm really hungry and I want to eat my ramen. Please shut the door now so we can start," Tsunade ordered. She then turned to Jiraiya, who was standing by the door. "Jiraiya, would you please make sure that we have our privacy in here?" she asked. "Hey," Jiraiya smirked. "Very well, thank you." Turning back to the three ninjas that are inside the room, she addressed them with a serious expression on her face. "I think," she started, "that it is time for you children to know the truth about Naruto." Naruto looked over his shoulder and for the first time, saw Sasuke and Sakura sitting behind him. Sasuke noticed that his eyes grew wide for a moment, as if in fear, before going back to the way they were. What the hell is going on? Sasuke thought to himself. What does she mean by truth? What? Naruto yelled. "Tsunade Baba, what's the meaning of this?" "I'm sorry, Naruto," Tsunade said apologetically. "But they had to know the truth now. We can't hide it from them for much longer. They're your teammates and they deserve to know." "No," screamed Naruto while shaking his head. "Naruto?" Tsunade said sympathetically. "No." Naruto yelled again. This time he already had his eyes closed while he was shaking his head and he was gripping the edge of Tsunade's desk tightly. "What's this?" Sasuke thought to himself again. What is he so afraid of that he doesn't want us to find out? Sasuke was brought out of his thoughts by the sound of running footsteps. Naruto was running towards the door. "Oh, no you don't," Tsunade said while taking out the same baton-like piece of wood that Sasuke saw Jiraiya holding when he restrained Naruto. Is she going to knock him out again? Sasuke once again thought to himself as he stood up. This might get bad. Naruto doesn't run away for nothing. "Call a portis," came Tsunade's voice, loud and clear. A jet of light hit the door and it gave an odd squelching sound. Naruto reached the doors but as he tried to pull them open, he found that it wouldn't budge. Sasuke realized with a jolt of understanding that the door was now sealed because of whatever it was that Tsunade did. "Let me out," Naruto growled, wheeling around to face Tsunade. "Naruto?" Tsunade said once again. "I'm sorry, but they had to know." "Don't do this," came a pleading voice from Naruto who seemed to be on the verge of tears. "Please, Hokage-sama," interrupted Sakura politely. "What's going on?" "Naruto," Tsunade said firmly yet tenderly. "Don't you think that they have a right to know what others besides them already do?" "Please," came Naruto's pleading voice once again. This time, he was already sitting on the floor, holding his head between his knees. "No," came another strangled and muffled reply from him. Whatever this secret is, Sasuke knew that it was big and it was one that Naruto had been keeping from them. What could be so bad that he didn't want Sakura and him to find out? And what did Tsunade mean by others besides them knowing about this secret? Sasuke was becoming very confused as questions and speculations started moving in circles around his head. No, this is exactly what he feared. Why is Tsunade forcing him to reveal his secret? This isn't right. Why, came Naruto's weak voice, muffled because his head was between his knees. Showing such weakness was not usually his nature, but this time, it's different. His biggest secret was about to be revealed to the people he most wanted to keep it from. If Sasuke and Sakura found out, he would lose their friendship for sure. They can't find out, Naruto cried out. They shouldn't. Naruto stood up and fixed Tsunade with a look that said all about his opposition to the idea. They had to know, Naruto-kun. Tsunade said calmly. There's no other way. No other way? Naruto screamed. No other way for what? Things are fine the way they are. No, Naruto. Tsunade said firmly. You have become unstable and therefore dangerous. They have to know what they are dealing with so that they will not act blindly when dealing with you. Tsunade continued, this time, much more adamant. By keeping it from them, you are not only putting your comrades at risk but the entire village as well. She finished darkly. Naruto looked away from Tsunade as he turned his gaze towards his right fist that he was holding clenched at the level of his stomach. Admitting that he was wrong was not one of Naruto's strongest suits. He hated it when he was wrong. But still, Tsunade's words had a great impact on him. Being one to act first before thinking, Naruto would mindlessly endanger his life to protect someone that he cared for. To know that he might be the cause of risk for everyone was a pretty hard burden to carry. But being alone again after experiencing life with friends like his teammates, he couldn't. He just couldn't. But as a friend, came a voice from within him. Would you be willing to risk their lives for those reasons? What if you kill someone the next time? Then it would be all your fault, for not telling them what they were dealing with. The voice of his conscience came over and over again, drowning him in the guilt of his selfishness. His mind was in conflict as to what to do next. Should he tell them the truth now? Or wait until it might be too late? Confused and frantic, he brought his head up and sought guidance from Tsunade's sympathetic gaze. We had to do it, Naruto-kun. Came her unwavering voice. They had to know the truth. We can't lie to them anymore. Fully grasping what he now has to do and why he has to do it, Naruto hung his head in hopeless resignation. Tsunade would now have to do the rest. Sitting down on the floor once again, a silent Naruto braced himself for what would probably be one of the most important events of his life. He had been through many trials and his life was almost destroyed several times in the past. Who knows, maybe he could survive this time as well. Seeing Naruto in such a defeated state broke Tsunade's heart like nothing else. The aura of cheerfulness that usually radiated around the blonde-haired boy was now totally gone, replaced with the azure tinge of despair. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, she said to herself, but directing her thoughts towards the boy who was across the room from her. But I had to do this, for everybody's sake, especially yours. I hope that you will be able to forgive me for breaking your trust after all has been said and done. Telepathy not being an ability of a ninja, Tsunade's apology reached only as far as the edge of her mind. Nothing permeated the thick fog of silence that hung in webs around the room, surrounding all of its occupants until Tsunade finally found the strength to talk. Please understand that I had to do this for a reason, Naruto-kun. She said apologetically. Naruto looked up at her, his eyes showing understanding yet resentment at what she was about to do. Sasuke was now very worried. Whatever it was that they were talking about, it was a very serious matter involving Naruto. It was very obvious that Naruto didn't want him and Sakura to know about it. Why though? Seeing Naruto in such a state made him contemplate the idea that the blonde shinobi's smiling exterior was just a facade, hiding the true emotions that he really felt. Hokage-sama, Sasuke said cautiously, may we please find out what is going on? Why does this matter concern us? Sasuke looked at Sasuke with and addressed him. Of course, Sasuke-kun. She said seriously. This matter concerns you because you are Naruto's teammates and this is a situation that deeply concerns him. I think that you could both figure out what I am talking about. What is she talking about? Sasuke thought to himself. Unless, does this have anything to do with his condition, he inquired. Sakura gave a gasp of realization and clamped her hands over her mouth, not wanting to disturb the conversation that, although concerned her as well, seemed to be between Tsunade and Sasuke only. Yes, it does, Tsunade said gravely. However, the both of you were made to believe a lie about Naruto. He does not really have an advanced bloodline that takes a while to stabilize. In reality, he is what is called a Jinchuriki. Sasuke and Sakura gave Tsunade a pair of deeply questioning and confused stares before they turned both their eyes to Naruto, who was looking resolutely at the floor space beside him. What? Sakura asked hesitatingly. A Jinchuriki, Tsunade answered and proceeded to explain patiently. Do you remember your history lessons? If you do, you would recall the incident in this town that involved the nine-tailed fox demon. Sasuke vaguely recalled the story that their ninja academy teacher, Iruka-sensei, had told them in class. Wasn't that the demon that the fourth Hokage? He started but was cut off by Tsunade. Yes, that's the one. Tsunade said affirmatively. The fourth Hokage lost his life in the process, but he was able to suppress the demon by sealing him. A demon can only be sealed within a baby that has not yet been born. In other words, he sealed the nine-tailed fox demon inside a child who was still in its mother's womb. At the moment that the ritual was completed, the baby became a Jinchuriki, a person who has a demon sealed within himself. That Jinchuriki is Naruto. Silence once again wrapped around a room like a curtain, unwilling to budge due to the fact that no one had anything to say. Sasuke turned his head slowly towards Naruto, who now had his eyes closed, as if afraid to see his and Sakura's reaction to the news. Sasuke himself did not know what to think. Had this demon been Naruto's source of power all these years? Come to think of it, he does take on fox-like characteristics whenever those incidents occur. The red chakra around him must be the Kyuubi's. So, this was Naruto's secret all along. But, what about what Tsunade said? About other people besides them knowing about this secret? Hokage-sama, Sasuke spoke quietly, gently breaking the silence. Who else knows about this? You said something about other people knowing. Tsunade sighed and then answered Sasuke's question. Mostly everyone in the village who was alive during the Kyuubi's attack knows about Naruto. The third Hokage declared this information as top secret and told everyone not to speak of it to the younger generations, so none of you knew the truth about Naruto-kun? Until now? Sasuke and Sakura digested this information with unease. So that was why everyone in the village treated Naruto differently. Growing up with no parents, Sasuke was never told to stay away from Naruto when he was a child, but back then, he couldn't have cared less about the irritating young ninja. However, he was not oblivious to the hateful stares that were directed at Naruto by the parents who came to pick up their children after classes. He only assumed that people were annoyed with him because he was just so loud and irritating. Remorse filled Sakura and Sasuke's hearts as they remembered the way that they treated him before they were teammates and even after. Sakura suddenly stood up from where she was sitting and strode over to where Naruto was. Without pausing, she knelt down and put her arms around Naruto and spoke in a soft voice. "I'm sorry," she said. At these words, Naruto looked up and with an unreadable expression on his face. Sasuke could only contemplate what Naruto was feeling at the moment. Was he sad? Relieved? Confused? All of those? "Sakura-chan," Naruto whispered. "Thank you." With a hopeful expression, he turned to look at Tsunade and in turn, Sasuke, giving the dark-haired ninja a questioning look. Sasuke knew that Naruto was querying whether he was still his friend or not. Smiling was not usually a character trait of Sasuke, but for this moment, he made an exception. Giving the blonde shinobi a medium-sized grin, he spoke with a humorous tone. "I'm not going to hug you." When Naruto smiled that smile of his, the smile that almost reached his ears and made both his eyes close, Sasuke knew that he understood his meaning and that everything was all right again, for the moment. Tsunade looked at the three young shinobi inside her office and couldn't help but remember the times that she had spent with Jiraiya and Orochimaru so many years ago. Orochimaru was oftentimes a jerk, but there were also moments that she had been glad for his friendship. It was no use reminiscing now, she thought sadly. Orochimaru is already an enemy and there are bigger problems at hand. She looked at where Sakura and Naruto were and saw that Sakura had now let go of Naruto, and offered him her hand to help him up. Naruto took the hand gratefully and stood up, a big smile plastered on his face. "So, Sakura-chan," he said enthusiastically. "Does this mean you're gonna go out on a date with me now?" Sakura squealed. "Just because I hugged you doesn't mean that I'll go out with you." "Dream on." "Ah, why not?" "Because you're still annoying, that's why." Naruto pouted but still kept smiling all the same. Tsunade smiled inwardly at herself. It was very reassuring to have Naruto back and smiling again. Acceptance from his friends was all that he needed and all that he feared to lose. Now that he had it, she decided that now was the time to tell them what was next. Tsunade gave a small cough, and when the three young shinobi turned to look at her, she gestured for them to stand up in front of her desk and addressed them. "Now," she started evenly, "I have not revealed this information to you just for the sake of you knowing. We have found a way to remedy your situation, Naruto-kun." Naruto looked perplexed for a moment before he realized exactly what Tsunade was talking about. "Really?" he exclaimed hopefully. "How? What do I have to do? Will it get rid of the Kyuubi?" "Yes, it's true," Tsunade said with a slight smile. "We are not yet sure what the final result will be because Jiraiya has not yet finished translating the source of our information. However, we are certain that there is a process that can restrain the Kyuubi if needed, without as much difficulty as we had in the past." "How do we do it, then?" asked Naruto. "Do I have to do something?" "As a matter of fact," Tsunade stated, "you do. But before I get to that, there are a few things that I would need to explain." She then picked up from her desk the wooden stick that she used to seal the door earlier and held it up for the three young ninjas to see. "This," she explained, "is called a wand. A magic wand, to be exact." All she got in return were 3 disbelieving stares from the 3 children in the room. Sasuke was the first to speak up after a few seconds. "You don't expect us to believe that, do you? Magic is just a myth. There's no such thing," he said coolly. "Are you sure about that?" Tsunade replied. "Actually, I didn't expect you to just take my word for it. That is why I invited someone over to do most of the explaining to you. He's much more knowledgeable about the subject than I am. I expect that he will be here in a while, but before then, I assume that you will want some proof about what I just said." A silent nod from Sasuke while the other two still kept silent and confused was all she needed. Immediately, she stood up and faced the big couch that Sasuke and Sakura were sitting on earlier and promptly pointed her wand at it. "Felina Verto," she spoke, loud and clear. With a sudden violent jerk, the couch started to shake and shrink. In a few seconds, there was an orange tabby cat in the spot that the couch used to be. The cat looked around for a second, gave a soft purr, and curled up on the floor to sleep right away. Sasuke, Sakura and Naruto could only gape at the cat that was now sleeping on the floor. After a few seconds of staring, they turned their heads to Tsunade as one unit. How? Naruto could only stutter. Tsunade gave them a knowing smile before speaking. "What I just did is called magic. Yes, it exists and I can use it. So can several other people. The couch that I just turned into a cat was originally a cat in the first place. I just transfigured it into a couch before you got here." "Transfigured," Sakura said uncertainly. "That is what you call it when you turn an object or an animal into something else." Tsunade answered. "Ah!" Naruto yelled in frustration. "What is this? It's all so confusing." Tsunade gave a small laugh at Naruto's statement before speaking again. "I do not expect the 3 of you to believe in what I am saying right away, even I was skeptic when I first found out about it." Tsunade paused for a while as the 3 shinobi looked at her doubtfully before speaking once again. "Okay," she said. "Here's the deal. The 3 of you will have to learn magic, and in order to do that, you will be enrolled in a school of magic. The 3 of you will pose as exchange students from Japan during your stay at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." Sakura took a slightly audible intake of breath before addressing her concerns to the Hokage. "Exchange students?" she said in a puzzled tone. "Why? Will we have to leave the country, then? Why do we have to learn in the first place?" "To answer your question, Sakura-chan," Tsunade replied. "Yes, you are indeed leaving the country. If you and Sasuke-kun will consent to accompany Naruto to Scotland. Magic is an essential part of the remedy that Jiraiya found, and for it to be able to work properly, Naruto would have to learn the principles of Western magic. Of course, if you and Sasuke-kun would accompany him, I am sure that you two will also have a lot to benefit from it." Slightly surprised by Tsunade's answer, the three young ninjas kept silent for a while until Naruto spoke in a quiet voice. "You two don't have to come with me if you don't want to," he said, although really meaning the opposite. His two teammates looked at him as if he was crazy and then spoke. "I'm not missing this opportunity," Sakura said. "If what Tsunade-sama says is true, then I want to learn everything I can about magic. So, of course I'm going," she finished animatedly. Sasuke just gave a non-committal shrug and spoke quietly. "If it's going to make me more powerful, then I'm going." Naruto looked at his two teammates, smiled widely, then leapt in the air, raising his right fist. "All right," he screamed enthusiastically. "Hayworths, here we come." "Naruto-kun," Tsunade said gently. "It's Hogwarts. Don't embarrass yourself." Smiling, Tsunade looked at her, the clock on her desk, and smirked knowingly. "He's about to arrive," she said enigmatically. "That man's timing is like clockwork." "Tsunade-sama," Sakura said, calling the attention of her master. "Who exactly are you waiting for?" "We are waiting for a man named Albus Dumbledore," she replied smoothly. Albus, or Professor Dumbledore as you would call him, is an old friend of mine and the headmaster of Hogwarts. He is also one of the most powerful wizards of our time. I asked him to come by so that he can officially. Tsunade was cut off from talking as the fireplace that was burning so lightly a few moments ago suddenly flared up and an old man's face appeared in the fire. Sasuke, Naruto and Sakura could only gasp in astonishment at the sight before them. The most surprising thing of all, however, was when the face in the fireplace smiled and spoke to Tsunade. "Ah, Tsunade-heim," exclaimed the old man in surprisingly fluent Japanese. "Excellent, excellent. A very pleasant afternoon to everyone. Is the time now convenient for me to step in?" he inquired politely. "Of course, Albus," replied Tsunade delightfully. "As usual, you are on time. Time would be a precious thing to waste, my dear Hokage," said the man known as Albus Dumbledore as he stepped out of the fireplace and into Tsunade's office. The old wizard was wearing a robe of a deep royal purple that was printed with several silver stars and a matching pointed hat. "Am I right to assume that these are the three students that I have admitted into my school?" he asked, indicating the three astounded shinobi. "Yes, they are," Tsunade replied and turned to the three in front of her. "Well, introduce yourselves." Sakura was the first to do so, Haruno Sakura, age 16, Chunin rank. "A pleasure to meet you, sir," she finished, bowing to Dumbledore. "Such a beautiful young lady," he replied, also bowing in return. The next to speak was Sasuke, Uchiha Sasuke, age 16, Chunin rank. And then bowed to Dumbledore as well. "A pleasure to meet you as well," Dumbledore said, likewise bowing to Sasuke. The last to speak was Naruto, and when he did, it was in a very loud voice. "Oyaji, old man," he hollered. "I am Uzumaki Naruto, age 16, Chunin rank, the number 1 ninja in the village, and the future Hokage." He ended his statement with "Guys, nice guy pose." My, chuckled Dumbledore. "Such a delightful young lad. Is he the one, Lady Tsunade?" "Yes, he is Albus," Tsunade replied. Very well, Dumbledore said. "Let us be seated and I will try to answer all of the questions that you have." Dumbledore took out a wand from a pocket of his strange-looking garment and gave it a flick in the air. Out of nowhere, a complete living room set stood in what was empty space before. "I think that some refreshments would be in order," said Dumbledore as he flicked his wand yet again. Several slices of cake appeared along with a tray that held a teapot and 5 teacups. "Well, let's all take a seat," Dumbledore said. "I hope that the couch would be suitable enough to your liking." Dumbledore took a seat in one of the 2 armchairs and indicated the rest of them to do the same. Funny how the guest seems to now be acting like the host of the gathering. Tsunade took a seat in the other armchair that was opposite Dumbledore's while the 3 Chunin took their seats in the couch. Dumbledore took hold of the teapot and started pouring tea for each of them. "Earl Grey," he said as he took his own cup and gestured for the others to take theirs. "Very good for digestion in the afternoon." Sakura and Tsunade took both of their cups, although Naruto and Sasuke didn't touch theirs. Neither of them had much fondness for tea. "Shall we start, then?" Dumbledore asked. "Who has the first question?" The 3 young shinobi looked at each other first before Sakura could get the courage to ask her question. "Professor Dumbledore, sir," she said. What exactly is magic? Dumbledore looked very thoughtful for a moment before he spoke. A very good question, but before I answer it, could you tell me just exactly what chakra is? Knowing the answer since her days at the Ninja Academy, Sakura confidently spoke up. Chakra is the inner energy of a ninja which he uses to perform ninjutsu and other things. Very good, said Dumbledore approvingly. Now, I will tell you our definition of magic. Magic is the inner energy of a person which he uses to execute spells, curses, jinxes, and many more things. Now, Sakura-chan, can you tell me the difference between what I have just said and what you have said? Sakura was at a loss. Apparently, she didn't know the answer to the question. Consequently, she shook her head. Understandable, Dumbledore chuckled. I will now try to explain to you the difference between the two. I ask you to please bear with me as I delve into the historical points of the subject. The three ninjas shifted in their seats and fidgeted slightly. This could be quite a long afternoon, Tsunade thought. The room was silent as Dumbledore cleared his throat and then proceeded to tell the story. This started a very long time ago, he started. Approximately 3,000 years ago, the things that we know as magic and chakra did not exist. However, there were a number of people who could do many incredible things just with their minds. They had but to will it, and with a single word, it will happen. Mind you, they could not do anything as colossal as creating another world or making mountains grow out of plains. But still, they could do things that other people, even us now, could not. These men were called sorcerers for they used what was known then as sorcery. These sorcerers were both feared and respected by primitive civilizations and all was well until about another 1,000 years. Dumbledore paused here to take a sip of his tea and then continued talking. After about 1,000 years, they noticed that fewer children who carried the power of sorcery were being born every generation. In addition, those who did have the power were not able to use it to the full extent, unlike the sorcerers before them. It was also around this time that sorcerers were persecuted against by the newly formed Catholic Church. It was at this time that the different sorcerer communities scattered around the world and started to hide in the shadows of the ones who once respected them. Now, these groups were now scattered all over the world and they were all trying to attempt to recover the lost power. After several hundred years, and in an attempt to do so, a group of people trained themselves physically to their limit and used different tools by which to channel the power. This group of people were the ninjas. Naruto and Sakura gasped in amazement while Sasuke sat still, taking in every word that Dumbledore was saying. Yes, it was your group of people who first reconnected with the ancient power. However, the ninjas soon realized that the power they wielded was different from the one used by their forefathers. This power was raw energy, or should I say, elemental by nature. This power required intense physical training to harness and could be invoked by a series of hand seals. Nevertheless, these ninjas could not conjure things out of midair like the sorcerers of old, nor could they turn one thing into another, except themselves, of course. Transfiguration, Sakura muttered, unaware of it. Precisely, Dumbledore said. You know of it, then? Oh, Sakura answered shyly. Tsunade-sama explained it to us earlier this day. Ah, I see, said Dumbledore. Well, I shall continue then. Now, about 150 years later, and about 200 years before Hogwarts was founded, magic wands were invented by the wizards. With these wands, the power within the descendants of the old sorcerers could once again be used. Although, like the ninjas, they never harnessed the true power of sorcery. The wizards soon discovered that their power, magic, and the ninjas, chakra, were simply the two different sides of sorcery. Now, you must understand that everything that exists has two sides. Yin and yang, light and dark, white and black, heaven and hell. There are too many examples to name. The point is, nothing in this world is ever only one-sided. Magic could be referred to as the more feminine side of sorcery because it is more gentle, more practical for what we do. It requires a strong mind, a pool of innate magic, and of course, a magic wand to control it. Without a wand, performing magic is difficult because it is what channels the magic outside of the body to take effect on the things around you. On the other hand, chakra could be called as the more masculine side of sorcery for it is viscous and violent. As in the elemental side of sorcery, it uses the power of the elements to do its bidding. To be able to use chakra, one must have intense physical training, a strong mind, and of course, a chakra reserve inside the body. Because of the physical training, the wands are no longer necessary to direct the power. Inside the descendants of the sorcerers and some other people, these two sides are present. It only depends upon you which side you will choose to have training in. Excuse me, Professor, Sakura interrupted politely. If that's the case, then why doesn't everyone just learn both? A very good question, said Dumbledore. And one which you will know the answer to in a few moments. You see, when the wizards found out about these ninjas, they coveted the power that they didn't have. And just the same, the ninjas guarded their knowledge of chakra very jealously. Because of this, a great war erupted between the wizards and the ninjas. Badly outnumbered, the ninjas were forced to retreat from the fighting. After a few years, the ninjas came back, stronger than ever, and the wizards conceded. After a truce that was declared, the wizards and the ninjas went their separate ways once again, and ever since then, the breach between our worlds has never been completely bridged. Even so, a ninja today can still learn the art of magic because it is still present within their bodies. It only lies dormant because the power of chakra dominates it. All you would need is a wand and some extra training and you would be as good, if not better than wizards and witches that are your age. On the other hand, wizards and witches can also harness the power of chakra, but that would only be possible if they trained themselves as hard as you have, although I doubt any of our kind would be willing to do that. Dumbledore said humorously. I should add that nowadays, it is not safe to use magic against a ninja, nor is it safe for a ninja to use his chakra against a wizard. When this happens, the two energies will battle for dominance inside the victim's body and it will usually result in death. This is why there has always been a rule that any ninja that is found in wizard territory will be terminated immediately. I believe that the same rule applies in ninja territory. He finished darkly. Any other questions? Sasuke looked as if he was about to say something when Naruto spoke up. Yeah, I do, Oyaji, he practically screamed. Why did we only find out about this stuff only now? The answer to that question is relatively simple, Dumbledore replied. The two sides agreed to never speak of each other ever again so that peace can be maintained. I only found out about the ninja community because of a few private journals written by a wizard during the Great War that I had at my disposal. I sought out this community about 16 years ago because I needed their assistance for something. That was when I met Tsunadeheim. To date, almost all of the wizarding world remains oblivious to the existence of your world. That is why we are able to live peacefully, side by side. Naruto could only scratch his head in confusion. It was Sasuke's turn to ask his question. How did the ninjas make the wizards concede during the war? He asked curiously. Alas, Dumbledore said, sounding regretful. That I do not know. The journals that I have did not provide enough detailed information about that. Quote, Sasuke sighed in disappointment. Although, Dumbledore continued, I do believe that they used a weapon of some sort. Of course, I am only guessing as I do not know what really happened. Sasuke gave him a nod of acknowledgement and then Dumbledore stood up. I must be going now, he said urgently. Really? Said Tsunade morosely. So soon again, Albus? I'm afraid so, my lady, said Dumbledore regretfully. I'm afraid that the war is pressing urgent matters into my hand. I see, Tsunade said. I understand. Thank you for doing this for us even if you're extremely busy. Think nothing of it. Oh yes. Here you go, he said as he handed 3 sealed envelopes to Sasuke, Naruto and Sakura. Your admission letters. Be ready to leave for London a day after tomorrow. You will go there to get your school things which are listed inside that letter. The 3 shinobi pocketed the letters for reading later and bowed as one to Albus Dumbledore, who also bowed in return. Well, now that everything has been settled, he said, this time speaking in English. I now formally welcome you to Hogwarts. A good day to all of you. And with a swish of his cloak, he headed to the fireplace and disappeared among the flames that had seemingly engulfed his body. Neat and tidy. These are the 2 words that one cannot use when describing Naruto's place. Dirty clothes strewn haphazardly on the floor, crumpled pieces of paper thrown everywhere, a messy and unmade bed, and most prominent of all, empty instant ramen bowls scattered all over the table and the countertops. One could say that his apartment was literally covered in filth. Still, this is home and Naruto likes it the way it is. Besides, visitors never came except for Iruka and he usually cleans up the mess though, judging by the state of the room, it seems that Iruka hadn't dropped by in a while. Naruto thought as he entered his residence. I better say goodbye before I go. He'd probably worry if I left without saying anything. It was already nighttime and they would be leaving for London tomorrow. Still, Naruto had not yet packed any clothes as he had spent most of the day at Ichiraku Ramen, stuffing himself with all the ramen that he could eat. Never travel on an empty stomach, he says. Well, he thought to himself. I better pack now. Getting his duffel bag from under his bed, he began sorting through the different articles of clothing that he had in his closet, namely 2 orange and black colored jumpsuits and a pair of pajamas. I should have done my laundry, he thought glumly. Knowing that they would be staying abroad for several months, he took all of his clothes, even the ones on the floor, and crammed all of them in his bag. Being a ninja meant that you should have good packing skills, right? Even if that meant jumping up and down the bag just to get the zipper to close. While taking off the clothes that he was already wearing to put on a pair of pajamas that he left out of his packing, he noticed the letter that the old man, Dumbledore, had given him. It was sticking out of his pocket and he had completely forgotten all about it until now. Tearing the flap open and taking the letter, he started to read what was written inside. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore. Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Sorc. CHF. Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confed. Of Wizards. Dear Mr. Uzumaki, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins September 1st. Due to the special circumstances concerning your admission, you are required to attend a meeting with the headmaster after your trip to Diagon Alley to discuss certain matters about your education. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress. A meeting? Naruto thought glumly. No doubt we're gonna get another long story that's gonna take all day to tell. Looking inside the envelope and finding the list that was indeed enclosed there, he found that a lot of the book titles related to topics that he knew absolutely nothing about. And the clothes, they're all black, and gloves made of dragon hide? There were dragons over there? Knowing next to nothing about the magical world, Naruto was now suffering from information overload. There's only so much new information his mind can take in a short amount of time. Knowing that the things that he thought existed only in fairy tales were actually real was too much. Putting the letter and his bag aside, he lied down on his bed and closed his eyes. Sleep was what he needed right now. He would just have to finish packing his other stuff before leaving tomorrow. Sunday morning dawned bright and early for everyone in Konoha. This time of the week meant that people were shopping in the market for food that they would eat for the new week. As it already is, Sasuke was squeezing his way through the market and the overcrowded throng of people who were busy with their shopping. They were supposed to meet at Tsunade's office at 9 o'clock in the morning, and seeing that he only had about 10 more minutes to get there, he shouldn't waste more time. Jumping up to the nearest rooftop, Sasuke made his way to the next one, jumping from rooftop to rooftop. Continuing in this manner until he reaches Tsunade's office, certain thoughts from yesterday happened to drift into his head. Sasuke had spent most of yesterday thinking about the things that he found out about magic and Naruto. Mostly about Naruto. Knowing that a powerful demon currently resided in his teammate came as a real shock to him. It was disturbing to find out that someone with whom he had worked with for almost 5 years had been keeping a secret this big from his team. Although, Sasuke couldn't really blame him for that after remembering how the villagers treated Naruto. Still, knowing that the Kyuubi was the reason for Naruto's extraordinary quantity of chakra and strength, not to mention his remarkable healing abilities and reflexes, was enough to make Sasuke just a little bit envious. After debating with himself, he ascertained that none of this was Naruto's fault at all. He was just a baby when it happened and there was nothing he could do about it. Just like the time when Itachi had killed his family and he had been too powerless to stop him. Don't think about that now, he scolded himself. Arriving at the foot of tower that housed the Hokage's main office, he entered the building and made his way to the stairs leading to the top floor, to where his teammates waited for him. A sound of running footsteps, someone calling out his name, made him stop walking. "Oi, Sasuke," said an extremely familiar voice. Turning around, he saw Naruto, who was wearing his usual orange jumpsuit and carrying an oddly bumpy blue duffel bag which Sasuke assumed to be his clothes. The dobe can't even pack his clothes properly, he thought, with an almost exasperating tone. Yeah? What do you want? Without stopping, Naruto yelled as he ran up the stairs, I'll race you there. Last one to arrive is a big loser. Within seconds, Naruto was already a level above Sasuke. Not wanting to look weak, Sasuke drew his brows together and raced after Naruto. It looks like everything is going to be fine now. Arriving at the door of Tsunade's office only a few seconds after Naruto did, Sasuke scowled and crossed his arms. Ha! Naruto cried while jumping in the air and raising his right fist. I won. You're a big loser. You had an unfair head start, Sasuke smirked. Dobi. Don't call me a dobi. Naruto cried resentfully. Bastard. Sasuke was about to reply when the door suddenly opened, revealing an irritated-looking Jiraiya. What are you two doing yelling out here? The legendary Sannin practically screamed. Come inside right now so we can leave and get everything over with. Not being used to such a moody Jiraiya, the two Chunin were compelled to obey him. Stepping over the threshold, they were stunned to see Jiraiya wearing a set of plain green and red robes instead of his usual attire. In effect, he rather looked like a walking Christmas tree. Maybe this is why he's so pissed. Sasuke thought to himself. Naruto and Sasuke went over to the couch where Sakura was sitting and sat down when Tsunade spoke. You'd better not irritate Jiraiya, she said. Apparently, he has a hangover from a drinking binge last night. Jiraiya looked up from where he was sitting and gave Tsunade a dirty look that said it all. Don't look at me like that. Tsunade said reprovingly. You knew you were going with them and you still chose to get drunk. It's your fault. Jiraiya wisely chose to stay silent. He's accompanying us? Sasuke asked Tsunade. Yes, he is, that's why he's wearing robes. As you might know, that is the standard attire in the wizarding community. Having deduced as much from Dumbledore's outfit and the robes that they were supposed to buy on their lists, Sasuke and Sakura were not surprised about this piece of information. Naruto, however, had quite a violent reaction. What? He cried, standing up from the couch. You mean we have to wear that kind of outfit all the time? Not all the time, of course, Tsunade said briskly. Just when you're out in public. But. Naruto stuttered. How are we going to move in that outfit? Where will we put our shuriken and kunai holsters? We won't be able to reach them under all of that. First of all, Tsunade said. We have to discuss a few ground rules. You don't have to bring your weapons with you all the time. You are to refrain from showing your skills to the people there, and you should not alert anyone to the fact that you are ninjas. Is that clear? All three Chunin apparently had a problem with these rules. How are we going to defend ourselves then? Naruto said. What if we get attacked while we're there? Sakura asked. So you mean to say that we won't be doing any training while we're there? Sasuke said doubtfully. Enough! Tsunade yelled, pounding her fist on her desktop. The three young shinobi immediately fell silent. Okay, Tsunade said patiently. You are under the impression that you will be attacked while you are over there. Be assured that you will be well protected where you are and that no one can penetrate the school grounds without the knowledge of the headmaster. After looking at the three of them to make sure that they understood, Tsunade spoke again. As for your training, there are many available rooms there and the grounds are big. You may train at your own time, provided that you will not be seen by any of the students or the teachers. You mean, Naruto said enthusiastically, that there are going to be other students like us at Hogwarts? It's a school, Dobi. Sasuke said condescendingly. Of course there are going to be other students. Don't call me a dobi. Naruto screamed back. Alright, that's it. Jiraiya suddenly said, standing up from his chair. If you two brats are going to argue the whole day, then I should just go home to sleep and we can all leave tomorrow. Sasuke and Naruto fell silent once again and sat back down on the couch. Okay, Tsunade said again. You should probably get going in a while. Let me just explain how things are going to go today. The three shinobi listened intently as Tsunade explained the plans for the day. When you get there, you are to meet with a wizard with the name of Rubeus Hagrid. He is an old friend of mine and he will be one of your teachers at Hogwarts. First off, you will go to a place called Diagon Alley and do your school shopping there. But before that, you will visit Gringotts, the wizarding bank, and get the money I gave to Jiraiya converted into their currency. After you have got all of your school things, you will go to a wizarding village called Hogsmeade and from there, you shall make your way to Hogwarts where the three of you and Jiraiya will part company. Questions? How are we going to get to London? Sasuke asked. Tsunade smiled knowingly and opened a drawer, pulling out a medium-sized jar with greenish powder inside. She placed the jar on top of her desk and said vaguely, "Flow powder." "What powder?" Naruto asked confusedly. "Flow powder," Tsunade repeated. "You take a handful of this powder, throw it into the fireplace, and when the flame turns green, you step inside and say your destination loudly and clearly." "What, won't we get burned?" Naruto screamed again. "I think it's better if they would just see it done," Jiraiya said. "Alright," Tsunade said, unscrewing the cap of the jar. "You should probably leave now, anyway." Taking the jar from Tsunade's desk, Jiraiya strode over to the fireplace in which the fire was burning brightly and took a handful of flow powder. After setting the jar on top of the fireplace mantle, he threw the powder inside the fireplace and stepped inside. "The Leaky Cauldron, London." Jiraiya spoke clearly, oblivious to the green flames surrounding his body. In a flare of green light, Jiraiya was gone and the flames had turned back to their normal yellow-orange hue. "Well, then," Tsunade said. "Who wants to go next?" The moment that his feet found solid ground once again, Sasuke decided right there and then that traveling by flow powder was absolutely worst way to travel. The feeling of being ed down a giant drain and spinning around and around at a very high speed did not suit well for the dark-haired ninja. Brushing the soot that had clung all over his body, he looked around the place where he currently was. He was obviously at a restaurant of some sort, seeing that there were people seated around the many tables in the room with a plate of food or a cup of coffee. These people were visibly wizards, as they were wearing robes, not to mention that Sasuke saw many cups of coffee and tea being stirred only by spoons that were moving of their own accord. A second later, Naruto appeared out of the fireplace followed shortly by Sakura, looking very much like they were about to retch their morning meals. Not minding the soot that covered her, Sakura placed her palms at her sides and let out a small wave of chakra that was just enough to calm her stomach. Doing the same for an extremely grateful Naruto, she turned her questioning eyes towards Sasuke. "I'm alright, Sakura," Sasuke said coolly, even though he was feeling a bit queasy. Sasuke turned back to the wizards that were minding their own businesses behind him. He found that not one of them had turned to see the newcomers that shot out of the fireplace. Evidently, people coming and going through the fireplace were a very common occurrence to these people. The only people who seemed to notice their arrival was Jiraiya, who was walking up to them right now. "How did you guys like the journey?" he smirked as he reached them. "Arrow Sennin," Naruto growled loudly. "I'm gonna get you for that. Whoever came up with that way of traveling is a big idiot. I almost threw up my breakfast." Jiraiya just laughed lightly at this when Sasuke saw that he was not alone. Just behind Jiraiya, there was a very huge man who was more than twice his size and about 4 times as wide. His face was covered with a very wild, tangled beard. Never in his life had Sasuke seen a man so large. Naruto and Sakura had also noticed the giant of a man and were looking up at him with widely astonished eyes. "Quite the feisty one, Jiraiya?" The man grunted amusedly in English. Not knowing what to do, the three of them just kept staring until Jiraiya spoke up, also in English. "I'd like the three of you to meet Rubeus Hagrid," he said. "He will be your teacher this coming year at Hogwarts." "It's a pleasure to meet ye," the man said. "Ye can call me Hagrid, it's what the other students call me. These are Sakura, Sasuke, and the noisy one with the bright clothes and Naruto," Jiraiya said, pointing to each of them in turn. Snapping out of their momentary mental lapse but still a little overwhelmed to speak, the three Chunin bowed as one to Hagrid. Now, ye don need tear me," Hagrid said. "A handshake would do just fine." He then took each of their hands, which were extremely small in comparison to his, and shook them vigorously. "There ye go," he said after shaking Naruto's hand. "I'll be goin' with ye to get your school things. I told chaperone here to get himself a room so he can rest. Hangovers are really nasty, I tell ye." "Rest, yeah right," Naruto said doubtfully. "The moment we go, he'll be out and chasing girls." Hagrid gave a deep bellowing laugh while Jiraiya just glared at Naruto. "Yeah, well," Hagrid said. "He's been like da, ever since I met him." Jiraiya then turned to Hagrid and just sighed. "I just never get any respect anymore." Hagrid laughed again and Naruto muttered, "That's because we know what you really are, Arrow Sennin." "Well, we best be goin' now," Hagrid said after having his laugh at Jiraiya's expense. "We'll be headin' Turl Gringotts first." Just to get money changed and then we can go get stuff. Let's go. Naruto yelled, walking towards the exit, with Sasuke and Sakura walking behind him, looking annoyed. Hagrid exchanged a few words with Jiraiya, and after giving him an amused look, went out the door to follow the three. New sights and sounds greeted the Konoha ninjas on their way to the Wizard Bank. Everywhere they looked, something new and interesting always caught their attention. Moving pictures, strange toys, and even brooms that supposedly could fly. Gringotts wasn't that far away from the leaky cauldron, but they could have arrived there a lot faster if Naruto hadn't stopped to look at every window that they passed. "Nay, Sakura-chan," Naruto said excitedly, pointing at a model of the solar system that was suspended in midair and had all the planets revolving around the sun. "Look at this, it's floating all on its own." Hagrid chuckled to himself, finding Naruto's behavior amusing even though he couldn't understand a word that he was saying, while Sakura just rolled her eyes while telling Naruto to quit embarrassing them. Sasuke, on the other hand, was also secretly amazed at the things around him. Being much more discreet than Naruto about it, he looked at most of the windows that they passed and found the things displayed quite remarkable. "Here we are," Hagrid said, indicating the huge white building that was in front of them. Gringotts Bank. Following Hagrid's lead through the pair of gigantic oak doors, the three shinobi walked inside behind him, observing the strange creatures that were seemingly running the bank. "They're goblins," Hagrid said after noticing the way that the children were looking around. "They're in charge, running the bank. The foreign exchange section is there," he said, pointing at a desk a few meters away. They strode over to the desk and Hagrid took out a small pouch from his coat. Putting it down on the desk, he spoke to the goblin who was in charge. "I'll be wantin' to exchange these inter our money, if you don't mind," he said. "Certainly, sir," the goblin replied curtly, taking the pouch from Hagrid and opening it, revealing a thick wad of rolled-up bills inside. "Japanese yen, I see," he said, placing the bills on one side of an ornately crafted golden pair of measuring scales that didn't even shift with the added weight of the bills. After fiddling a few weights on the base of the scales, the side holding the bills suddenly started to lower. The goblin seemed particularly pleased as he took out a heavy bag and started to pour its contents onto the other side of the scales. Naruto's jaw literally dropped when he saw that big gold coins were coming out of it. Apparently, the bag of coins wasn't enough, so the goblin then took another bag and then also proceeded to pour its contents over the already considerably big mound of gold on one side of the scales. This time, the scales were starting even out already and it only took about half of one more bag to completely balance it. Satisfied, the goblin tipped over the gold onto his desk and turned to Hagrid. "How will you be taking this money, sir?" he asked politely. "Could ye divide it up into 3 bags, please?" Hagrid asked. "Certainly, sir," the goblin said, placing his hand over the mound of gold. With a graceful movement of his fingers, the gold separated into 3 equal piles and he deftly swept the contents into 3 individual pouches. He then handed the pouches over to Hagrid and thanked him. "A pleasure to do business with you, sir," he said. "Same here," Hagrid said cordially. Turning to the 3 shinobi, he handed each of them a pouch of gold. "Now, there's a lot o' money, you 3, he said seriously. "There's 1,000 galleons in each o' those bags, so ye better be careful where ye put it. Now, it'll be safer if ye just bring with ye a couple o' galleons and then keep the rest locked up in trunks." "Thank you, Mr. Hagrid," Sakura said politely, putting the heavy pouch away. Now, Hagrid said. "I told ye ter call me Hagrid. Just Hagrid's fine." "Okay," Sakura said shyly. "Nay, Hagrid-san," Naruto said suddenly. "Where are we going next?" "Well, I guess Hagrid-san's just fine," he said amusedly, walking towards the exit. "Madam Malkin's o' course. We need ter get ye 3 a set of robes so ye one stand out so much." "Ah, you mean we really have to wear those things?" Naruto asked dejectedly, following Hagrid. Hagrid smirked. "I don't care much for them robes myself. But those are standard school uniforms, can't mess with school rules, now can you?" Sighing defeatedly, Naruto kept walking beside Hagrid and decided to ask him a few questions. "Hagrid-san," he called. "What things are we gonna learn over there?" "What? Oh," Hagrid said. "Well, I guess would really depend on what year level gonna be in." I'm guessing Dumbledore'll put you in with students her age, so I think you three will probably be 6th years. Of course, that'll depend on how much you learn in the next 2 weeks. Learn? Naruto asked confusedly. Sasuke and Sakura were just behind them, trying to hear every word of the conversation. Oh, didn't Dumbledore tell you then? Hagrid said. He's designed a special program for you three so you'll be able to learn the things that are supposed to know, being transfer students and all. Catching on to Hagrid's allusion quickly, Sasuke and Sakura just kept quiet. However, Naruto didn't quite get it as quickly. What? He asked loudly. We're supposed to learn everything in 2 weeks? How can we do that? We're not even real transfer students, ouch. Whatever Naruto was going to say, he was stopped abruptly by a smart kick in the shin by Sasuke. What did you do that for? Naruto said angrily, turning around to yell at Sasuke. Dobby, don't go yelling around about what we really are. Remember that we're not even allowed to be here. Sasuke said seriously. Grumbling irately because he knows that Sasuke was right, Naruto turned back to Hagrid to find him stop in front of a shop with clothed mannequins on the window and had a sign just above the door that read, Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. Here we are, Hagrid said, opening the door to let the three of them in. Now if you just. Hagrid stopped suddenly and stepped aside as a boy with silvery blonde hair stepped out of the shop, followed closely by a woman who also had blonde hair and was dressed more elegantly than all the other women that they had seen so far. The boy paused for the shortest second, gave Hagrid an odd look that resembled contempt and then walked away with the woman that was presumably his mother. Sasuke found the boy's behavior quite peculiar and he posed this matter to Hagrid. Did you know who that boy was? He asked Hagrid. Wah. Oh, Hagrid said, being brought back to their attention. There's Draco Malfoy. I'm not exactly his favorite person in the world, but he's not mine either. I expect you'll be in his year. Well now, let's go in, he said, holding the door open wider so they could enter. Welcome, welcome. A cheery voice came out of nowhere. I'll be with you in just a second. A moment later, a squat, smiling witch that was dressed all in mauve appeared from behind the curtains. Hogwarts, I presume? She asked the three shinobi. Yes, please, Hagrid said. This is their first fitting, so give them a whole set of school uniforms. My, Madame Malkin tutted. First fitting? Aren't you a tad old to only be starting at Hogwarts? They're exchange students, was all Hagrid said. Exchange students? Madame Malkin asked skeptically. I've never heard of Hogwarts ever having those before. It's a new program Dumbledore's trying out, Hagrid said confidently. Well, Madame Malkin said, turning to the three shinobi. I hope that things would go well for you in Hogwarts. What country are you from, dearies? Japan, Sakura said plainly before Naruto could open his mouth. Ah, I see. Well, let's head to the back for your fitting then, shall we? Madame Malkin replied. Oh, Hagrid, would you mind staying here while the children are being fitted? I'm not entirely sure if you can fit at the back. It's no problem, Hagrid said dismissively. In fact, I'll be heading towards Nocturne Alley for a while. Need to get more flesh-eaten slug repellents for me cabbages. Quote, wonderful, then, Madame Malkin exclaimed. Now, you three, Hagrid said to his team. I'll be meeting ye at Flourish and Blots to get books. Now, there's just in front of this shop, he said, pointing outside the window. I doubt that ye'll get lost on the way. Nodding silently, the three shinobi went towards the fitting rooms while Hagrid exited his shop. Naruto could only do as Madame Malkin asked as she took his and Sasuke's sizes. Sakura was in another fitting room, being fitted by another witch. So, Madame Malkin asked Naruto as she took his waistline. What year will you be in, dearie? UHHMM. Naruto mumbled. Not wanting her to suspect anything, Sasuke provided the details. We don't know yet. Professor Dumbledore will sort it out when we get to Hogwarts. I see, Madame Malkin said while standing up and gesturing for Naruto to get off the pedestal. All done. Your turn, dearie, she said, looking at Sasuke. Naruto sat on the bench where Sasuke was sitting just a few moments ago while Madame Malkin continued her inquiry. And what's your name? She asked Sasuke as she measured his height. Sasuke Uchiha, Sasuke said plainly. They were told that when people asked for their names, they should say their given name first before their surnames. Such a serious young man you are, Madame Malkin said quietly. The rest of the fitting went by quickly and they were free to go as they got their robes. With a shopping bag in each of their hands, the three shinobi left the shop and proceeded to the store that was directly in front of it. Before they could enter Flourish and Blots, Naruto's eyes found something that it liked. 2 stores away from the bookshop, there was a brightly colored blue and orange building that stood out from the rest. The big sign on the roof read, "Judging by the funny-looking products displayed on the window, it must be a joke shop of some sort." "Sasuke, Sakura-chan," Naruto said excitedly while pointing at the store. "I want to check that store out." "Huh?" Sakura asked. "Which one?" "Forget it," Sasuke said with a tone of finality. "We aren't separating. Sasuke-kun's right," Sakura said, agreeing with Sasuke. "It won't be safe if we split up." But, Naruto said pleadingly. "It's just beside the store. I won't get lost." Sakura could see that Naruto was really excited about the store, so she decided that maybe it would be alright if he was supervised. "Oh, alright," she said with a sigh. "Sasuke, would you go with him to make sure he won't get into trouble?" Sasuke gave Sakura a sharp glare that clearly meant, no, but then grudgingly nodded his head in agreement when Sakura gave him a look that plainly said, "Please. I don't need a babysitter," Naruto said indignantly. Sakura fixed Naruto with a stare that clearly said, "Sasuke's going with you or you won't go at all," and that was all it took to make Naruto sigh in defeat. "Good," Sakura said triumphantly. "I'll just get 3 copies of everything that we need. Meet me back here when you're done." With that said, Sakura entered the bookshop and Naruto and Sasuke started to walk in the direction of the brightly colored building. As they reached the entrance of the store, the door swung open and 2 boys, one who had untidy black hair and was wearing glasses and another one who had red hair and lots of freckles, stepped out. Naruto estimated that they might be about the same age as he was, give or take a few months. "Your brothers are brilliant, Ron," Naruto heard the black-haired boy say to the red-haired one. "I reckon they're pretty rich now, too," the boy named Ron replied. "Maybe I can get them to buy me the new set of Chudley Cannon robes that we saw earlier at Quality Quidditch Supplies." "They probably will," the dark-haired boy said thoughtfully. "But they might do something to it first. Like they might make it strangle you when you try to put it on something," he added jokingly. The 2 boys walked in the direction where Naruto and Sasuke came from, laughing and throwing playful punches at each other. As Naruto walked inside the store, he noticed that Sasuke had stopped following and had stationed himself near the entrance. "Oi, Sasuke," Naruto called. "Aren't you coming in? I'm not going inside a place like that," Sasuke said indifferently. Scratching his head and wondering what Sasuke's problem was, Naruto shrugged his shoulders and told Sasuke to suit himself. Excited and happy that he had money to spend, Naruto walked inside the store and was amazed, and a little bit confused, at what he saw. There were different kinds of things on the shelves. Products labeled as stink bombs, fake wands, skiving snack boxes, headless hats, and many other products were for sale. Something that was called ethereal edges caught Naruto's attention. There was a picture of a simple knife, almost similar to a ninja's kunai, printed on the box and the label that said, "Stab your friends and throw it at pesky relatives and see the knives pass right through them." These knives are great for scaring people. In front of the boxes, there was a sample of the product. Naruto picked it up with his right hand and poked his left palm with the tip of the knife. When he didn't feel anything, he pushed the knife further in until the point was already protruding from the other side of his hand. It was like his hand wasn't solid. There was no resistance at all and you couldn't feel anything from the knife at all. Magic is amazing, Naruto thought to himself. Turning the box over to see the price, he saw that it was 1 galleon and 3 sickles. Wonder how much that is, Naruto thought. Well, Hagrid-san said I had a lot of money, guess it should be enough for, let's say, 5. Taking 5 boxes of the ethereal edges with him, Naruto made his way towards the cashier, which to his dismay, had a long line. After several minutes of standing in line and looking at other products that were near him, and getting himself some more stuff, it was finally Naruto's turn to pay. He was greeted by a red-haired man who was wearing robes of royal purple and had a very pleased smile on his face. "That's quite a haul you've got there," he said, looking at the things that Naruto had placed on the counter. "I can't wait to try all of this stuff out," Naruto said excitedly. "They all look great." "Why, thank you," said the man as he was punching in Naruto's purchases. Would you like to see how we make these things? Really? I can? Naruto asked excitedly. Sure, the cashier said happily. I'm Fred, by the way, and over there is my brother George, he said, pointing near a door at the back of the store towards another red-haired man who looked exactly like him. Wow, Naruto exclaimed. You look the same. Of course we do. We won't be very good twins if we don't look at each other. Now, go to him and tell him that I told you that you could see the production. Quote, thanks, Naruto said, now teeming with excitement. That'll be 17 galleons and 12 sickles, Fred said, handing Naruto his bag full of his purchases. Oh, okay, wait, Naruto said, pulling out the pouch that Hagrid gave him earlier and counting 18 gold pieces. Putting the gold coins on the countertop, he asked Fred unsurely. Is this enough? He asked. Yes, Fred said thoughtfully. Are you a Muggle born? It seems like you're not familiar with the money. Alarmed because he didn't know what that meant, Naruto stuck to the lie that he was told to repeat. I'm from another country, he said unhesitatingly. Japan. Oh, I see, Fred said contentedly. Well then, here's your change. Now go to George and he'll give you a tour. Happily, Naruto said thanks and went over to Fred's twin brother, George, for his tour. Naruto came out of the shop about a quarter of an hour later, carrying 2 shopping bags and his money bag considerably lighter. He was greeted by an irritated Sasuke who reprimanded him for taking so long inside the store. What took you so long? Sasuke asked Naruto agitatedly. They gave me a tour and there were so many cool things in there. Naruto replied enthusiastically. You mean to say that you spent money for a couple of toys? Sasuke said irately. Remember that it's Konoha's money that you're spending and that it should only be used to support the mission. But, some of the things I got could be really useful. Naruto said defensively. I doubt that. Fine, I won't show it to you then, Naruto said, sticking his tongue. Let's just go back, Sasuke said. Sakura's probably waiting for us. Turning his back to Naruto, Sasuke began walking in the direction of the bookshop when they heard Hagrid's voice. Got stuff, then? The half-giant said. Hagrid-san, Naruto said excitedly. Look at all the stuff I got. It's from this cool store called Wazda, you say? Said Hagrid. Oh, yes. Them two run in the shop, Fred and George, they were my students before. Really? Naruto asked curiously. They went to Hogwarts too? Yay, they did, Hagrid said. They have a little brother. I expect he's about her age. That must be the boy we saw earlier, Naruto said, looking at Sasuke. Right, Sasuke? Sasuke just nodded his head. Well, anyway, where's Sakura? Hagrid asked, looking around for the missing girl. She's still at the book place, getting our stuff, Naruto answered. Well, let's go get her then, Hagrid said, leading the way to Flourish and Blots. So, Ye had fun shopping, Hagrid quipped, looking at Naruto's shopping bags. Yep, I got lots of stuff from that store earlier, Naruto said happily. Well, you better not let the caretaker see you with those things, Hagrid warned Naruto. He's banned those things from Hogwarts. Why would he do that? Naruto asked, disheartened. He's not too fond of the twins, Hagrid said. Reaching the entrance to Flourish and Blots, Sasuke immediately went inside to look for Sakura. Excusing himself, Naruto followed inside. The interior of Flourish and Blots was literally lined with books. Books about every single topic were displayed everywhere. On shelves, in the walls, there were even books stacked on the floor because there was no more space to put them. Looking around for a head of pink hair, Naruto began walking between the shelves. Sasuke on the other hand was making his way towards the second level of the store when he heard Sakura's familiar voice. Really? That's absolutely fascinating, Sakura said. Well, there's much more to it, actually, you can find it all there in the book, said a second voice. Peering around a shelf lined with books, Sasuke saw that Sakura was seated on a chair and was talking to a bushy-haired girl that was seated opposite to her. She was clutching a book with the title Hogwarts, a history on the cover, and there were 3 shopping bags lying at her feet. Sakura-chan, Sasuke called quietly. Sakura abruptly turned her head towards Sasuke and stood up. Sasuke-kun, she acknowledged. Are you done? He asked her. I think we have to go. Of course, Sakura said. Please wait a moment. Sakura turned to her new friend and bowed. I'm sorry, but we have to go. Thanks for the information. I'll buy the book and hopefully, I'll see you at Hogwarts when the term starts. Oh, it's no problem. In fact, I should be on my way too. The other girl said, picking up her own shopping bags. Why don't I accompany you while you pay for the book and we can leave together? My friends are downstairs and I'm supposed to meet them. That would be nice, Sakura said. Oh, this is my friend, Sasuke. She said, indicating Sasuke with her hand. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Hermione Granger, the girl said, looking at Sasuke. Nice to meet you, Sasuke said, bowing his head slightly in acknowledgement. Together, the three of them made their way down into the lower floor and to the cashier where Sakura paid for her book. On their way to the exit, they spotted Naruto between two bookshelves, holding open a black book that had the title The Rise and Fall of the Dark Arts, a comprehensive history. Naruto was skimming through the pages, as if looking for something. Whatever he was looking for, it seemed that he couldn't find it because he closed the book and placed it back on the shelf. Then looking up, Naruto saw his two teammates staring at him. Sakura-chan, Sasuke, Naruto called out. Old man Dumbledore was right. They're nothing at all about ninjas or chakra in their history books. Then noticing that there was another person with them, Naruto stopped talking and looked at Sakura inquiringly. This is Hermione, Sakura said, introducing her new friend to Naruto. And then, looking at Hermione and indicating the blonde ninja, she said, and this is Naruto. After the pleasantries have been exchanged, Hermione asked Naruto, did you just say Dumbledore's name? Yes, Naruto replied. It's nothing, he added. Oh, Hermione said, taken aback. Shall we move on? Sakura said, breaking the awkwardness. The four of them moved on towards the exit when they heard Hagrid's unmistakable booming laughter. He was still outside and was apparently talking to the two boys that Naruto and Sasuke had seen exiting the joke shop earlier. Hagrid, Hermione said excitedly, rushing forward to meet her huge friend. My own, there you are, Hagrid said. And I see you've met new schoolmates. The two boys who were looking at Hagrid just a moment ago turned their heads to look at the three shinobi. Harry, Ron, Hagrid said, looking at the two boys and then gesturing at the three shinobi. These are Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura. They'll be new schoolmates. They're exchange students from Japan. Not knowing what to do, the two boys awkwardly said, hello, and waved their hands. Now, Hagrid said. There's no need for ye to be shy. Hey, the boy called Ron said, pointing at Naruto's shopping bags. You bought something from my brother's joke shop. Yeah, Naruto said, glad to have someone to discuss his new toys with. They have great stuff in there. Yay, see, Hagrid said. Now, we gotta go. We still have to get a few more things. Now, I'll see ye three when term starts, okay, he said, looking at Harry, Ron and Hermione. Okay, Hagrid. See you, Hagrid. Nice to meet you guys. The three friends walked away, leaving Hagrid with the three shinobi. Those three are the best students a teacher like me could ever ask for. Hagrid said. Well, we still have to get wands. Ollivanders is the only place to go. Come on. Hagrid turned and made his way to the joke shop, the three shinobi following in his trail. A few hours later, our three heroes can be seen walking through the halls of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The three of them had decided that there were worse ways to travel than flow powder, and that was via portkeys. After getting their wands at Ollivanders, they used a portkey that was charmed by Dumbledore to go to Hogsmeade, and from there, they were transported to Hogwarts by carriages. It had been a couple of minutes since they had arrived, but Naruto's stomach was still churning. Presently, they were on their way to Dumbledore's office, being led by Hagrid. Naruto couldn't help staring in amazement at the hugeness of the castle and everything that was in it. He moved his head from side to side, quietly taking in the grandeur of the place. He could see that his two teammates were also amazed by everything. Hagrid suddenly stopped in front of a statue of a gargoyle and spoke clearly. Cheesecake, he said to the gargoyle. Suddenly, the gargoyle leapt to the side and a spiral staircase was revealed. Too shocked to do anything, the three shinobi just stood there and watched as Hagrid climbed the stone steps. Come on, ye three, Hagrid called from above. It's okay, it won't move no more. Swilty, the three shinobi ascended the stairs and arrived at the threshold of a pair of big oak doors. Come in, said the familiar voice of Albus Dumbledore. The three shinobi entered and saw that there were two more people in the room besides Hagrid and Dumbledore. There was an old woman wearing robes of an emerald green and a small old man seated on a couch in front of Dumbledore's desk. "Have you got everything you need?" Dumbledore inquired. "Yes, we have." Sakura spoke for the group. "Good, good," Dumbledore said, sitting down on behind his desk. He gestured for the three to be seated on the other couch in front of the one occupied by the two people. "These are Professors McGonagall and Flitwick," Dumbledore said, indicating the two people. "Professor McGonagall teaches the art of transfiguration while Professor Flitwick teaches charms." The three shinobi immediately stood up and bowed to their teachers, as was customary to them in Japan. Professor McGonagall bowed her head in acknowledgement while Professor Flitwick said, "It's such a delight to meet the three of you." As they all went back to their seats, Dumbledore spoke again. "I will now tell you how we are to proceed with everything. Naturally, everyone in this room has been informed as to your real identities, and so have some of your other teachers." He started. "This is how things are going to be for the next 2 weeks. Professors McGonagall and Flitwick will train you in the basics of magic and you will be put into the appropriate year level depending on your assessments. You will be sorted into your proper houses along with the first years who will arrive at the beginning of the term." At this point, Professor McGonagall stood up and looked at the three shinobi. "I will be teaching you the magic of transfiguration. Now, I want you to try and read your schoolbooks so that we won't have such hard time. 2 weeks is a very short time to learn what you have to learn, but we will have to do the best we can," she said. Professor Flitwick then took over. "You will have lessons with us daily for the next 2 weeks. The sessions will start at 8 in the morning and until 9 in the evening, pausing only for meals. We know that this is very laborious, but it is the only way to make sure that you three will learn what you have to learn. Now, your quarters will be on the 3rd floor," Dumbledore said. "It is guarded by a portrait of the wizard Agrippa and the password to get inside is Konohagakure. Of course, you shall be staying at your house dormitories after you have been sorted, but feel free to use the room at any time. This room is a suite and it has 2 separate bedrooms inside. The 2 boys will share a room while Sakura-chan will have one all to herself." After giving the 3 shinobi a few moments to digest everything, Dumbledore spoke again. "Well, that's everything," he said. "You may now head to your room, or you may want to explore the castle for a little while after Hagrid has shown you the room. Lunch will be served at noon in the Great Hall, or if you would prefer, a house elf can serve it to you in your room. You will find that your things are already in your respective rooms." The 3 shinobi stood up and bowed to Dumbledore, and then to the 2 teachers. "Thank you for receiving us," Sasuke said reverently. "It will be our pleasure to learn from you, and we will do our best to master what you have to teach us. It is also a pleasure to have you here at our school," Dumbledore said. "One more thing, I would like to remind to please, if possible, refrain from using your abilities. No one should know about your true nature." "Of course," Sasuke said. "A pleasant afternoon to all of you." Having said that, the 3 shinobi left the room and went down the stairs, following Hagrid on the way to their room. With this new school year comes a promise that things will be somehow different at Hogwarts, owing to the fact that 3 of Konoha's best ninjas are so far away from home. This new school year promises to be an exciting one, and it will be a year that will not be easily forgotten by the people who were around to witness the events that will take place in the coming months. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.